Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. Welcome into the show. It's popping, Ricardo.
What's up?
We just got some breaking news before we started recording. I mean, can you call it breaking news if there's...
I wouldn't call it breaking news because it could be just a crappy report.
Okay,
I don't know.
Just a crappy report from Mike Florio. I have never liked Mike Florio, by the way.
I'm not a huge Florio fan either, so that's why I'm not like...
But anyway, Mike Florio wrote a big old piece. You know, when it's not like, if it's real news...
everybody's talking about it now.
You tweet about it, right? Like, if it's real news, you tweet it, and then you put an article out. This guy put a thoughtful article out about this situation. The Patriots are reportedly trying to trade Mac Jones with several teams involved. So we'll keep you posted. If it happens on show, I mean, I will breaking news that, because I feel like that's news that's worthy of talking about. Like, if you went to the Commanders, would you feel better about Terry McLaurin?
I honestly would. I actually love that spot. For Mac Jones, I'm not a Mac Jones truther. You're the Mac Jones truther. Yeah. But I think Commanders might be a better spot than the Patriots.
Raiders would be good, too.
Raiders would be good. I don't think the Raiders do that, though.
No, they.
Maybe they do.
But
they just signed Garoppolo.
Trade Jimmy G away for just a clean swap. Bill would love it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we'll bring you news as it happens. Still a lot of things yet to happen in the NFL. We got Odell Beckham floating around in the hemisphere. We got DeAndre Hopkins floating around. Rumors about Jerry Jeudy possibly getting traded. Mostly wide receivers. Dalvin Cook has been in reports. Did you hear the latest report? Miami?
Yeah, I saw Miami. I saw that was in the beginning of the offseason. They were trying to get him.
Can they stop creating the best offense in the history of the NFL?
I was going to say,
not best offense. That's
Dalvin Cook.
Best, I would say most talented team on paper.
Yeah, I think at Dalvin Cook, that team would be loaded.
Scary. But at this point, with what's going on with the Patriots, I might just go root for the Dolphins.
Okay, let's not go that far.
Yeah, you're right. This is a guy on Twitter that I follow, and he was, after the Dolphins had won like a bunch of games before Tua got hurt. I think they were like 6-2, something stupid. But anyway, they won a bunch of games, and everyone was getting all lathered up about the Dolphins. And after every game he goes to, he goes to every game, he posts a video of himself talking about the Dolphins. Big Dolphins fan. And he was screaming about how they're the best team. Finally, they're better than the Bills. They're gonna win the division. Like, he was all hyped up, one of those guys. And then every week there was like a slow decline as they continued to lose games at the end of the year. And he's like, "We're just the Dolphins" at the end of the year. He was just done.
So as a Mac Jones truther, a Mac Jones guy.
Yes.
Are you still a Patriots fan? They trade him?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I live
here.
Does
it hurt your soul?
A little bit. I mean, it's not as bad as I thought, because like I said, I told you this before. After everything that happened with Mac Jones last year and what the Patriots kind of did to him, I'm kind of the mind where it's like, if he goes to another team and he lights it up, like, I like it. It's a big middle finger to the Patriots.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. In that report, it also said that Mac Jones might be available for trade during the NFL draft if a team doesn't get the quarterback they want, which would be even worse, because then you're like the last domino to fall. So, like, if they trade him during the draft, then I guess it would have to be Lamar or bust at that point.
Yeah,
because he wouldn't be able to get one in the draft.
Well, it depends. They draft Anthony Richardson at that point.
And then trade Mac?
Yeah.
After, happen. I guess if he did it like that, but even then,
or they use him to trade up.
Yeah, they could. Who knows what they're going to do?
Give their first and another and go trade up to 5.
Mac and pick 14.
Yeah, you want Mac and pick 14? Sure.
I don't think.
All right, draw it up.
It would have to go to like 7 to the Raiders.
Mac Jones to the Colts. It's Will Levis. Bless you. Will Levis or Mac Jones. But anyway.
If they trade a first-round pick and Mac Jones for Will Levis, I think I'll be more upset than when we drafted Mac Jones.
Mac Jones or Will Levis, Rick.
Straight up 1-for-1.
Right now, pick one. Starting your franchise. You only get one.
I don't know, man. I might go Mac.
Okay. All right. There you go. On record.
It's close. I'm not saying it's not close, and I could get my mind swindled either direction.
I will say, Mac Jones threw what, like 4,000 plus yards.
At least we've seen Mac be an okay quarterback in the NFL.
That's true.
I don't know if Will Levis will even be that.
Yeah.
He'll either be trash or he'll be Justin Herbert. So, I mean,
it could go completely any other way.
But I think it's more likely that he's trash.
Yeah, fair enough. But we are going to talk about rookie wide receivers today and not the news. So if stuff happens, we will get it to you as it does, as we always do. I doubt that anything will happen because nothing usually happens the month of the draft until the draft, or at least the week up. So, but we are going to talk about our top 5 rookie wide receivers on this show. Friday, we're going to, not Friday, later this week on the second episode, we are going to talk about rookie running backs and some guys that you should keep an eye on in the NFL draft. There's a lot of guys at the running back position, so we'll discuss, who we think should be the top pre-draft, and then post-draft that'll probably completely change. But wide receivers, I think, generally are set in stone in terms of who we think are going to be really good. Before we jump into rookie wide receiver rankings, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, please leave a review and share this pod with your friends. If you're watching on the YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like and comment down below. Are you ready, Rick?
Let's do it.
Let's talk about some rooks. Talk about some rookies. And we're going to have some mock drafts coming up next week. Mock draft, rookie mock. We'll get through it. I love those because you get to the 4th round.
Yeah, and it's just a bunch of random guys you've never heard of.
Guys I've never heard
unless you play Devi.
Yeah, unless you play Devi. And then those guys are getting lubed up. They are lathered. They are ready to go.
No, they're not, bro. They're already done with this year.
I followed this kid when he was a 5-star recruit at an Alabama high school I've never heard of.
I followed this kid in 4th grade. He was the best 4th grade quarterback I ever seen. Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to those guys.
I watched film of this kid being birthed, and he looked like a great running back.
He came out the room running a 4.4. Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's where it's going, though. If we're being honest, and I don't want to, I mean, Devi's a thing, your niche is your niche.
Like I said, I respect the dudes that do Devi because it's a lot of work. It's a grind. I wouldn't.
So now I'm going to sound, at the sake of sounding like, a complete idiot, not knowing this, but I assume they did college football, fantasy football, but I've just never heard people talk about it. And I think a week ago was the first time I heard anyone mention college fantasy football.
It's because it's different because players are only in the league for like 2 or 3, 4 years.
Yeah, maybe 4. But anyway, so we're going to do rookie wide receiver rankings, give you our top 5. Rick and I's top 5 is pretty much the same. So
yeah, a couple differences, slight differences, but it's not anything.
So
crazy.
Let's start off with the number 1 guy. Absolutely love this player. And I at first, I think coming into the off season, I think it was a little bit more muddied as to who the number 1 wide receiver was. And then this guy, I think at the combine probably is where it shifted. He kind of ascended into,
it's funny because I think we are both kind of down on this player in the beginning of the offseason.
Yeah, and then things change. So we love, you got to love the Ohio State wide receivers. Got to love them. Jackson Smith and Jigba is the number 1 for both of us. Now, I will say, who are the other wide receivers that came out of that college? in the last
Last
couple
year,
years.
it was Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson were both
Chris
top
Olave,
15 picks.
Garrett Wilson, 2 top 15 picks.
Um,
A bunch of
who-
receivers
who's-
that are in the NFL right now that have had success. Like I think it was 2 different guys. I can't remember the exact report, but they both have said in the past that Jackson Smith and Jigba is better than both of them.
That was Garrett Wilson and
Was that
Chris
Chris
Olave
Olave?
in
Yeah.
multiple interviews have said between those three
Jackson
in
Smith is
college
better.
when they all played together, they said Jackson Smith and Jigba was the best.
So that doesn't mean anything at all.
It doesn't, but it is
very
like
interesting.
it's like, oh, okay.
So
Interesting.
things I like to look at for wide receiver prospects is breakout age. The earlier a player breaks out, the better they typically. That's one of the. I don't know why. I'm not going to explain to you why. In my mind, there's no real reason why, but that always tends to be an indicator.
I don't think it like fully translate all the time, but
no, it doesn't. All
the
the
reason
time.
for it is because if you're dominating in college as like a 19-year-old, you're probably going to dominate.
Yeah.
I mean, or you have a better chance to keep improving your game and then dominate in the NFL level when you're like 24, 25.
So
it's just showing you're at an elite level at a young age.
According to Player Profiler, he broke out at 19, which is 75th percentile. So that's really good. In terms of other metrics, he did not run a 40 time at the combine, I believe, but I do have his 40 time, which was 4.48. So that, I mean, I would say that's about average for a wide receiver in the NFL. Player Profile likes to add 0.5 to the total, 0.05 to the total, because
it's pro day.
It's a pro day. Usually blow off in the other direction, but I don't actually like these workout metrics, to be completely honest with you. But he had a 40 at the combine. He had speed score is 91.8, 44th percentile. Burst score is 122, which is 54th percentile. His agility score is 10.5. His catch radius.
His agility score, as you just mentioned, 10.5 broke the record. That's the all-time agility score for any rookie wide receiver prospect. And the person who had the record before him was Odell.
Oh, wow. So this guy, I was watching some YouTube videos to see some other people.
The classic college scouting.
But I have a few guys that I watch, and I like to try to just get a gauge. There are people out there who watch way more college football than I ever will, whose opinions I trust. So I like to listen to them and get, kind of an idea of what a player is and what a player isn't. Some people have said that this is a guy that could go out and play the X or the Z and play outside. And
versatile.
He's 6 foot tall. He's 196. I don't know what his combine measurements were. Hold on, let me pull those up real fast. He was, because they're all different. Every friggin' website has a different height. He is.
I always go player profile. But
yeah, 6 foot, 196. So he's not as short as I thought he was, but there is some belief that he could play outside. Now, based on the first 3 metrics that I discussed, 40-yard dash, speed score, burst score, those are average. They kind of remind me of Amon-Ra. And to me, I don't know if he can create separation on the outside. It might be something that you could develop with him, but to me, he's purely a very, very quick, very, very fast slot receiver. And his catch radius is very impressive as well. He's a big slot too. He's not huge in terms of muscular build, but he's a tall slot receiver. So there's a lot of things to like with Jackson Smith and Jigba, but there is a concern for me just looking at some of the workout metrics and some of those dynamics that he can't really play outside. And this class has the top 4 or 5 have 3 to 4 slot receivers that I would classify as slot receivers. So, I think this guy can move outside and can play outside possibly if he works at it a little bit more. But there is concerns for me when it comes to separation from that specific situation. So he's really good. PFF has him ranked as their second wide receiver. And later I'll tell you the other guy. But he's very smart. He's not going to go down with arm tackles, so he breaks tackles. He's good after the catch.
Like
He's very,
that.
very, very reliable receiver.
Mhm.
And so he's going to build, a connection to the quarterback really, really quickly. Like I said a second ago, he doesn't really have top end speed, so he's not going to like burn you over the top or do anything like that. And he'll take hits over the middle of the field, but he really like the outside stuff is his biggest concern. So, and he also had some history with hamstring injuries last year. So
Yeah,
keep an eye
and
on
it
that.
kind of shut him down too because he knew he
Yeah.
was wanted to go into the
So,
draft.
but he's my favorite receiver specifically because I think there's the most potential and talent there, and the OSU receivers they usually turn out to be pretty good, regardless of the situation. Now, to me, it's like he's going to be the first wide receiver drafted, I would imagine, and like there's some people who think that he's going
If
to go
he's
in the
not
top
first,
10.
he's going to be right after.
Right, but some people think he's going to go in the top 10. Some people think he's going to go between 12 and 14. So it's like, if he goes that high, like,
Yep.
and he's just like prospect wise, he's not better than, he's way better than Amon-Ra was. So there's that. But if he ends up just being Amon-Ra St. Brown,
It's a win.
it's a win. Yeah. Okay. I was gonna ask that just because
I think
I
it's a
look at
win.
Amon-Ra and I'm like, he's great, but I don't think he changes an offense.
No, he doesn't. But if you're getting a Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're still getting like a top, I don't know, 30 receiver in the NFL, top 20 receiver in the like.
Yep.
He's still a 100 catch guy in the NFL. That's pretty good. Even though I agree with you, I don't think he changes an offense.
Yeah.
He's still a really, really good player. And if you're getting that, I think in the first round,
And I think
you'll take that.
another thing I will preface too is the wide receiver position generally for fantasy football stays the same, and I like landing spot is important for some of these guys. And I focus this show more specifically is primarily focused on redraft, and we do spend this time of year talking about dynasty content and rookies and stuff like that. But it is focused on redraft. So my mind is always like, okay, can this guy produce in year one? And it just depends on the landing spot for that perspective. But if you're talking about dynasty rookie rankings and stuff like that, this guy's number one because I think he has the highest ceiling and the highest upside of all the wide receivers, no matter where he goes. So
redraft, I do take landing spot into consideration. Dynasty, I don't really as much. Like I look at last year as an example. Like everybody had Drake London as their wide receiver one. Yeah. But the Falcons had Mariota as their quarterback, and their passing offense was kind of a joke. So I think both of us had London outside our top 3 rookie receivers, and that ended up working out because guys like Olave, Garrett Wilson were much better. But yeah, with Jackson Smith and Jigba, I actually went into my little scouting report.
Oh boy,
trying to dislike him. Like my goal was gonna be like a hit piece, not a hit piece, but I was going in like, all right, this is why I don't like him for this, that.
Prepared this
and
show
it turned me the opposite way. I
be...
became a Jackson Smith and Jigba truther.
Yeah, because I remember I was like on Twitter and people were talking about this dude, and there were other guys that I liked, and I'm like, this just
people were going crazy over him, and I was like looking at
his like. Everyone loves Sky Moore, and
I thought the same. I was the same way, but then I became one of those people. One of the reasons is we'll start off with the fact that he was at Ohio State, as you said, playing with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. When we looked back at the Jamar Chase draft, I'm not saying he's Jamar Chase, so don't put words in my mouth, but we saw at LSU, Justin Jefferson at the time, Terrace Marshall, and Jamar Chase, these 3 great wide receiver prospects, and Chase was the youngest out of all of them, and kind of was the best one. And if you look back, Jackson Smith and Jigba was arguably the best one, and he was doing that as a 19-year-old. When Olave and Garrett Wilson were in their draft year. Yeah. So, and those guys are great wide receivers, and if Njigba was the best of the 3, that's saying a lot. And looking at his film, he does remind me a lot of Amon-Ra, but he's faster than Amon-Ra. Yeah. He's quicker than Amon-Ra. He's bigger than Amon-Ra. I think he can play the outside. I wouldn't put him there, though. I think he would be best in the slot. And he's also the kind of the prototypical size you look for those receivers. I mean, you look back at the last couple of years, Justin Jefferson was like 6'1", 200. CeeDee Lamb, 6'2", 200. Jerry Jeudy was 6 foot 195. Jackson Smith and Jigba 6 foot 196. He's kind of that same size as all those other past solid prospects. So he fits that mold. The agility score definitely put something in my pants. I'm not going to lie, with that all-time agility score, that was elite, because I do like that kind of quickness in receivers. And I think he definitely has that. He's not like at an elite level, but I mean, according to the agility score, he was. I guess he doesn't have an elite level of like twitchiness, I would say, but he's definitely quick, which I think matters a lot at the wide receiver position. I think it matters more than necessarily straight line speed, unless you're like Tyreek Hill, right? Unless you got like a 4.3. Yeah. And it's not like he's slow either. I mean, a 4.48 at the pro day was actually better than I thought it would be.
To be honest with you, I will say too, I thought he was shorter.
Yeah, some sites have him listed at 6'1". So he's like 6'6".
Yeah, I thought he was gonna be like 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah, no, he's a little bigger. And you know, his measurables are actually, he's a lot quicker than this guy, but it's similar to DeAndre Hopkins too, where Hopkins was slower than people thought, but he was decent sized. He had a great college career, had elite hands, had all those things, but he was he ended up running, I think, like a 4.5, and people were pretty upset about that. And he didn't have elite combine traits either, but both similar in their kind of just football sense. They're both really great receivers. Jack Smith and Jigba's ability to make guys miss is very good as well. So I think he's got all the tools to be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. He's the only wide receiver in this draft that I believe is worth picking in the top 20. I will say that. I think the other guys that we're going to talk about are worth first rounders, but they're more like late first rounders. This guy's, to me, is the only one that's worth
some of them,
a legitimate top 10 to 20 pick.
All right. So now that we've spent 20 minutes on JSN,
yes.
Let's jump into number 2, which Rick and I both agree on, which is kind of surprising because the other day he said he was going to rank this guy 3.
I know. I changed my mind.
I'm curious to change my mind. But Quentin Johnston from TCU. So this guy is a really, really, really good wide receiver prospect. I think for me, like if you wanted to talk about ranking ceiling, like I would probably take guys like Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers over Quentin Johnston if you were talking about floor. If you were trying to get a guy that is going to be like
I was going to say
in the NFL. Quentin Johnston is one of those players that has a bottomed out floor where he could just be like N'Keal Harry and disappear.
Yep.
Or he could be DK Metcalf. Like it is those are the options that you get with Quentin Johnston. And I think as an NFL team, you're looking at that going, well, that's dangerous. And as a rookie in a rookie draft, like I'm in, several dynasty leagues, so I'm going to end up with Quentin Johnston in some league, but he's the type of player that is such a freak athlete that the concerns that there are with Quentin Johnston kind of get overthrown. And so a similar player in this exact draft class at the quarterback position that I kind of look at with the same situation is Anthony Richardson. Ridiculous athletic freak who is going to make plays all over the field. But he has problems with accuracy. He has problems throwing the ball. He has other issues that pertain to playing the position that he plays. And it's the same thing with Quentin Johnston, which we'll get to in a second. But like he's the type of player that is such a freak athlete that all of, it's similar. I always go back to DK Metcalf with this guy because he's not as fast as Metcalf is, and he's not as like big as Metcalf is.
He's not as big, yeah. Either.
So it's like, but I always go because a similar player is DK Metcalf where, he would body catch and he'd, everyone talked about
his route running,
rock hands, and his route running wasn't good and stuff like that. And then he came into the NFL and he actually was really good. So it's like, this is the type of player that I see, people kind of being down on because his college tape isn't up to par, but that he's enough of a freak athlete that he can use his athleticism to make up on that. So just some information about Quentin Johnston, and I'm gonna go to player profile. I didn't even pull his profile up yet. But he is, so he's 6'3", 208 pounds. So like I said, he's not as big frame wise as DK Metcalf. I think Metcalf is 6'4" or 6'5".
Metcalf, I think, is 6'4", 230.
Yeah, so
he's huge.
Johnston's
still pretty big.
But he fits the profile of, because the NFL is changing. I will say that. There's this, I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about how the NFL at the wide receiver position has changed, where everyone was looking for this type of player, a 6'3", 210-pound wide receiver. And that was the prototypical, like, successful, really good wide receiver in the NFL. You look at wide receivers 10 years ago in fantasy football, they have this profile. Nowadays, Tyreek Hill kind of
more like
shifted
the AB
that.
Tyreek Hill.
Right, exactly. So Tyreek Hill and Antonio Brown changed that because they're short, quick, vertical guys that are also shifty and can make plays. And so now you're seeing more NFL prospects be with that profile. Devonta Smith was 6'2", but he was only 170 pounds.
Yeah,
and usually
people say he couldn't even play in the NFL.
That profile doesn't work typically in the pro game from what we've seen in the past, and now it does. So
do you think that's because, not to get off topic too much, but it's because of the NFL's kind of softer now in terms of rules and hitting?
Yeah,
smaller guys can survive.
That could be the case. But I think it's also that there was there was a stereotype almost that scouts would look at players and be like, oh, this guy can't make it in the NFL when they actually could.
That's true.
But anyway, Quentin Johnston fits that OG mold. Like, he's big. He has a burst score of 135.9, which is 98th percentile. Speed score is 70 percentile at 99.7, and his 40-yard dash was it's average, but I think some people wanted it to be faster because obviously this is the biggest difference between Metcalf and Quentin Johnston is that
Metcalf 4.33.
He ran a 4.33. This guy ran a 4.5 at his pro day. So, obviously slightly disappointing from that.
His other workout metrics though weren't too far off.
No, he creates really good separation. He's a fantastic wide receiver, but I think the biggest thing for him is that he's an athletic freak. So that's already moving him up boards. He's a really big target, and he has this unique start-stop ability for a tall, big wide receiver, which I found impressive. Is that there's other question marks on his film, but when you watch him on film, he's one of those guys that's fast, and you can just get the ball in his hands, and he's going to make people miss.
Yeah, that was one thing that surprised me, and I'll let you finish on him, but was his quickness.
Yeah, so it's like that. I've heard people say he's 6'3", he's 210 pounds, and he plays like a slot receiver, not a slot receiver, but he plays like
he's 5'10", 170.
Yeah, he plays like he's 5'10", 170. He's quick, he's shifty, he does all that stuff, but he's like huge. So, if you can develop the aspect of his game where he can start to become, take advantage of his frame and his size, then you have a unique wide receiver on your hands. And I think that's what I think NFL teams are going to look at. Can you develop?
Yep.
I was watching film on him a couple days ago, and there was one play in particular where he went up to go, because Rick told me like a couple weeks ago that he body catches, and I was like,
yeah,
he's got to have something on film where he catches with his hands, because he did at his pro stuff like that. Like, he can catch, but like, I didn't understand what you meant by that until I saw this one play. He went up, and it's like he was 3 times bigger than the 2 cornerbacks around him. And he tried to basket catch the ball instead of like going up and manhandling the guys. And it's like, that's the stuff that makes you a little bit nervous with this player, where it's like, he can't do that in the NFL. He has to go up and make plays. Right. Like, he cannot do that. So he plays more of like a finesse game, and he doesn't use his size as a weapon, and he should learn. Hopefully somebody in the pro game like shows him that. And it's the second he unlocks it, like I said, it's just all bets are off. So, and he does have a problem with drops, so that's obviously an issue. But I think just the reason why I have him too isn't specifically because of anything he did on film or statistically in college. It's more or less the fact that he is, he's big, and he has, when you watch him on film, that shiftiness that guys his size
don't have.
normally don't have. So, And because if he figures out how to use his size, obviously that changes things in terms of, playing as an outside receiver. But, he's a guy that can make plays after the catch as well. So it's like you just get the ball in his hands in any way. Like he can take a 5-yard pass, 10-yard pass to the house, similar to what Metcalf could do. So he's got to learn how to use his size as an advantage. And if he does that, I think he's going to be lights out. I think he has, of all the wide receivers that I see in this class, I think he has the highest ceiling, which is why I have him too. Whereas, these other guys like Jackson Smith, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, like these guys are going to probably be like high ceiling guys high floor guys where they are, they still have high ceilings and they could be really great in the NFL, but they have a better chance of working out than Quentin Johnston. So that's why I have him too.
Yeah, I think the thing that you said where he plays like a 5'10" receiver or whatever.
Yeah.
But he doesn't play like a big receiver, I think is the most accurate statement with him, which is what kind of concerns me. And I think if you're able to teach that out of him, like if you're confident in your abilities, your coaching abilities, where you can teach that out of Quentin Johnston to play like a big receiver while he also keeps that kind of shiftiness he has, his ability to make guys miss at that size is you just don't see very often. So if you're able to put it all together with him, I agree 100%. I think he probably has the highest ceiling for receivers in this draft. But that's why, like you had brought up, like you want the Patriots to draft him, and I would be very okay with that. Don't get me wrong. I would just be very nervous of the Patriots' ability to develop him and that he might turn into N'Keal Harry.
I think the issue too is that he, like, Smith and Jigba is 6 foot tall, and like I think you could teach him outside. But like I said, the concerns about separation are a problem. But you look at some of these other guys. We'll talk about Zay Flowers 5'9", Jordan Addison 5'11", Josh Downs 5'9", Nathaniel Dell or Tank
he's
Dell
5'8",
5'8". A.T. Perry is like the next guy, and Michael Wilson, who are probably
going
to be like 4th, 5th round picks, and those guys are like in the 6'3s. But it's like it just looks like the top guys in this class are all small receivers, and the only guy that I see here that fills that OG mold that I was talking about is Quentin Johnston. And then the reason why I want the Pats to draft him at 14 or to trade back and draft him late in the first round would be because you have Juju, you have Mike Gesicki, slot, who both are going to deal with the slot. You have Tyquan Thornton, who's a field stretcher.
He would fit. He would fit for what they.
So what they need right now is a guy like Quentin Johnston. But anyway.
But Quentin Johnston doesn't play big either, so it's like you have to teach that. But again, if you could, it would be great. I was kind of looking at Daniel Jeremiah's scouting report for him, and he was saying like some of his and this just shows what we were just talking about. He only had 6 touchdowns out of the 32 passing touchdowns at TCU this year. And he didn't really have any like jump ball touchdown catches, which you would typically see out of those big guys. Most of his highlights and best plays are he gets like a screen pass and he makes a guy miss and he turns up the field, which again is great if he could put it together. It's just a matter of him putting it together. But yeah, you're right. The size is definitely appealing at 6'3", 208. And I don't think it's not Metcalf level, but it's something close to it. And out of everyone in this draft, I think it's the closest that you're going to see to somebody like that. And he does have some similarities in terms of his height, his quickness, his shiftiness. Metcalf's just a little bit bigger and a little bit faster. But again, it's kind of similar. I've seen comps to like T. Higgins too. Higgins is much better a jump ball, high point type of receiver, but he's similar size as well. So he's got that kind of ability. And I think watching film, I was definitely kind of shook, and no pun intended, on how he was able to make guys miss. I was like, wow, I was not expecting that watching it. But yeah, he does catch the ball a lot with his body. He does some things on the field that some guys that I watch that do scouting on receivers were like, it's not that he's not smart, but sometimes he doesn't do plays that he probably should, and that concerns me because it reminds me of N'Keal Harry.
TCU.
Yeah, and that could be coaching for sure. So he definitely has more question marks, which is why he's not number 1 on this list. And I don't think his production in college was good. It wasn't maybe elite. So there's a couple question marks with him, and I think he could also flop just because his ceiling is very high, but his floor is also kind of low.
Yeah.
So there are concerns, but the ceiling is high enough. The raw ability is there where he's number 2 on both of our lists.
Yeah. So if you draft him in rookie drafts and he flops, we told you. That
I know. I'd be scared to draft him in rookie drafts just because.
All right, so let's talk about a third guy. I didn't organize these, but the next 3 guys Rick and I have in different orders, and we do probably need to speed this up because it's already been a half hour.
You can talk about, if you want, your guy, and I'll talk about mine. And maybe we could just comment a little bit.
Okay. Well, let's just start with Jordan Addison.
Sure.
So I have Jordan Addison 3. Rick has Jordan Addison 4. This is one of those guys that's like, he's 5'11", 173. He ran a 4.49, so a little bit. I would say that's fairly disappointing. For him. Now he does play a lot faster. Like if you watch him on film, he's a lot faster than what that 40 time looked like. That's why I'm like, you want to talk about 40 times, you know, they're important to see if a guy can actually do it. And like 4.49 is extremely fast. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Deontay Johnson. From that perspective, Player Profiler also sees it as the same way because Deontay, like you look at his profile, you know, he's in the same boat where he's like, I never realized how small Deontay Johnson was, but he's 5'10", 183, you know, ran a 4.5. So like he's been very good in the NFL, but he's not like this guy that's going to be absolutely elite when it comes to, you know, taking the top off the defense or anything like that. But he's another one of those slot guys. And breakout age, 18.96, 95th percentile. But the speed score, burst score are disgusting. 18th percentile and 37th percentile, respectfully. So, like, there's some issues athletically here that I see with Jordan Addison. But he was fantastic in college. He's a great route runner at all 3 levels. So he doesn't just run, you know, slot routes or, you know, outside routes. He can do anything at any level of the field. He uses his route to essentially as a weapon to manipulate the defensive backs and create space. And then he has an extra gear so he can get away from those guys and make a play down the field. So that aspect of his game is really good. But he's not physical. He has drop issues. And a lot of his production at USC was schemed up.
Yep.
So there's definitely some concerns. His best year was 2021. He ranked 12th. His grade was 88.8, and he was 12th among 1,000 receivers that season. So he's a good receiver, but I think a lot of people, like, he was the bona fide a month ago or a month and a half ago.
He was my one.
He was the bona fide number 1 like wide receiver. And I don't know if it was combine metrics or just people digging deeper into him as they got into the draft. But people started to back off him a little bit. I still think he's a really, really good wide receiver, but to me, like, if I'm a team looking at wide receivers, I'm not sure how to use Jordan Addison because he's small. So it's like sticking him on the outside, you know, is going to be a challenge, especially if he doesn't have that vertical speed, which he didn't show at the 40, you know, on the 40. And it's like, if that's the case, like, what am I supposed to do with Jordan Addison? So, I have him 3 right now because I think he does possess raw physical tools that you can mold. But it might take a little bit of work to get this guy up to where you want him to be in terms of what kind of receiver he is.
Yeah, and I'll say with Addison, I won't go too in depth on him as much, but I think after JSN, I think the next 3 guys on my list, 2, 3, and 4, are all in the same tier. So like I would be okay with Addison being number 2 still. I don't dislike Jordan Addison. It's just the other 2 guys kind of I saw more out of them when I watched, and their metrics as well, the combination of the 2. Because Addison was number 1 for me before I started really digging in. Yeah. And then he kind of lacked in his combine skills. He's 5'11", 170. I watched his film. I thought he was really good, but he didn't blow me away in some of the stuff. From what I've seen, like, he's a really good route runner, which are typically my kind of guys, but it doesn't he didn't really blow me away in terms of like his quickness, his speed.
Mhm.
I don't think he's like a special athlete.
Yeah.
He's a good football player, don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
And I think he still has a chance to be a really good NFL wide receiver. But I just think of the guys we're talking about, he probably has like a little more question marks in terms of just his raw abilities.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely not like I think he does
He
have
dominated at Pitt though.
Yeah, I know. He seems like a guy that is like he definitely has a higher floor than he does ceiling. So I would say some people might disagree with it, but he's the Mac Jones of wide receivers. So.
Yeah. Daniel Jeremiah's player comp was Tyler Lockett, which I think kind of makes sense. Which, I mean, if he's Tyler Lockett, that's a good receiver.
I was going to say, he kind of a little bit reminds me of Devonta Smith, but shorter.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's fair.
But anyway.
But yeah, he doesn't blow you. At least for me, he didn't blow me away. But
no, he doesn't blow me away.
Could still be a very good NFL receiver.
Yeah. All right, next guy we got is Zay Flowers. Rick really likes Zay Flowers, has him 3. I have Zay Flowers 4. I like Zay Flowers a lot, but you play in the conference that you're in.
Yeah.
And you can't really control the power of the schedule, so I don't like using that as like a metric unless it really matters. And BC
I know.
is not a school that's playing top-notch opponents. I would say their hardest opponent is Clemson, and they're not even good anymore. They're kind of okay. But
what about Duke, man?
Yeah, Duke's good. Duke's great.
Yeah, they're okay.
Yeah, they suck. But Zay Flowers really didn't face a lot of competition in college, but he is really, really good. He chose BC. I think what was he as a recruit? I want to find that out. But he played elite. Like in college, like he's very good. He's not terrible. I don't even have like a recruit profile for him. I thought he was a 4-star recruit, but anyway. So the big thing with Zay Flowers is that he's another one of those slot receivers. He's kind of like JSN. I would say he's JSN light.
Okay.
So if
he's smaller though.
If you don't get JSN, you probably go after Zay Flowers if that's the type of receiver that you're going for. He's 5'9", 182 pounds, so he's definitely smaller than JSN. But if your intention is to put JSN in the slot and you miss out on him, then Zay Flowers would be a good second. I don't think there's any world where JSN has a world where you could stick him outside and teach him. Zay Flowers has no reality where he can play outside. Like I would be shocked if somebody figures out how to use a 5'9" wide receiver to play outside. His size is already short for short. So like he makes me freaking nervous. Like a lot of people really like this guy, but I'm scared of his like build. I just don't know how it works in the NFL.
So I'm going to go in on Zay Flowers if that's okay with you.
Okay, go ahead.
It's funny that you mentioned that you don't see a reality where he plays the outside. Did you know 75% of his snaps were on the outside in college?
See, but like, can it work?
Well, I know it's a different question of will it work in the NFL.
Yeah, will that work in the NFL?
I think he probably is better suited in the slot. But it's one of those like versatile guys where he played more in the outside in college, and that might be a good thing in terms of like he could have been much better in college if they put him in the inside instead of the outside.
Yeah.
But it does show that he, I think, is, could play in the outside of the NFL. Obviously, it's a different game, bigger defensive backs, more physical. So I don't know if he's going to be able to do that in the NFL, but he has the ability to do so, right? Some articles have compared him to Steve Smith, Antonio Brown, Tyreek Hill, all like the great small receivers. I don't know if he'll ever be that.
Yeah.
But I think when I was watching film on him and Addison, because they were both kind of the smaller receivers that will be in the top of the NFL draft, I just thought Flowers was more explosive. He was quicker.
Yeah.
And he had more of that, like that kind of it factor you see in receivers for me, like that twitchiness.
Yeah.
He has all of those things that I really love in those smaller smaller guys,
Yep.
which isn't always, doesn't always hit because I loved Elijah Moore and so far he hasn't really done anything in the NFL. But he kind of reminds me of those guys. He has some plays on film where you look at it and I honestly see it and I'm like, that's something Tyreek Hill does. That's something Antonio Brown does.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has that kind of physical ability of those guys. His player comp is Jahan Dotson, who I liked more than you.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's quicker than Dotson, or maybe more straight line speed than Dotson. He ran a 4.42, and I think he might on tape be able to run like a high 4.3. So he's got that kind of elite speed. His size obviously is not there, which I think is your biggest concern and probably my biggest concern.
I don't think
too.
he can't work out in the NFL because of the size. Like I think you've seen guys like that. You bring up Antonio Brown, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, like guys like that who are smaller. It's just those guys are
those guys are
like 5'10", 5'11". Zay Flowers is 5'9", and like.
Is Hill 5'9"? I thought Hill was 5'9".
He might be. I don't know.
And I know Tyreek Hill is different. He ran like a 4.3 straight up. So
yeah, but that usually what I look
4.29.
Usually what I look for with a player, and this is why I do like Zay Flowers a lot. He's 5'10". Tyreek Hill is 5'10". But the reason why I like a guy like Zay Flowers is specifically because he has a unique ability. And when you're talking about smaller receivers, they have to do something well. And there are guys that are really
Steve Smith
small.
was 5'9".
There are guys that are really, really small or maybe too big to play wide receiver that don't have this unique ability, that don't have this top, like Rick's honorable mention, Nathaniel Dell or Tank Dell.
Yeah.
He's probably got some good things, but he's 23 years old. He's
Yeah.
165. He's 5'8". He's smaller, and he doesn't even have elite speed. So it's like, what does he do well? So that's where I look at when I look at a guy like Zay Flowers. You talk about his quickness and his twitchiness as a receiver, where he makes these plays. The change of direction is ridiculous. Where he can just make guys miss. That's his unique ability, and it's like he doesn't. I mean, he ran a 4.42, so like that's really good. And on film, he's faster. So it's like.
Yeah,
there's good things there in terms of top end speed, but he's a guy he's a movable piece that you can get the ball and he'll make ridiculous plays. And I think that's why he's in my top 4, and he might even move up past Jordan Addison. To me, it's like I look at him and I'm like, he didn't really play a lot of competition in college. I don't know if you can teach him the outside because he is very, very small. And like, well, not that he needs to be taught the outside. He knows how to play it. It's just, can he do it in the NFL when the cornerbacks are 6 foot tall and very, very, very aggressive? So it's like, I just don't know that he can keep up with that. Like, you have to create elite separation on the outside in order to make plays.
Right. No, that's I think that's fair. I would just say, like, of all the guys in this draft with the ability to make someone miss, JSN and Quentin Johnson, I think, are really good at it. I think Zay Flowers is the best at it. If that's fair, but I think your concerns are valid.
He's got a unique ability as a small receiver. So like, it doesn't bother me that he's small at all. Like, I'll take him. Like, if the patch draft him, I'd be all over it. But like, I would take him any day of the week in a rookie draft. Like, he's fine. Like, I don't think he's bad at all. It's just, I think he's limited to upside and how a team can use him because of his size. So
okay. I think it's because of that. I think his floor is lower. So maybe Addison has a higher floor.
Yeah.
Where Addison, I think, is going to be a decent receiver in the NFL. It's just a matter of how good he is. I think Flowers could be a bust.
Tank. Yeah.
But kind of similar to Quentin Johnson, I think he's got a high ceiling because if he's able to figure it out, like he could be on that level of like the Steve Smiths, the AB, the Tyreek Hill. I think he has that kind of raw ability. It's just going to be a matter of like, is he going to be able to figure it out in the NFL and like playing on the outside and those sorts of things. And if a team is going to utilize him right, because that's another factor. Because a team has to know how to utilize guys like that.
Yeah, and some teams
because if they don't, they're just going to put him to waste.
If he gets an opportunity to play like with Kansas City,
Oh yeah, see, like
that'll be
that's
ridiculous. Like they'll know how to use him, and I think he's way better than Hardman. So like they would know how to utilize that player, and I think they would be
yeah.
a team that's in on him. I'm actually on Player Profiler. I'm not Player Profiler. PFF. They actually have a mock draft tool, and it gives you the trends of where all mock drafts where he's been going.
That's kind of cool.
So most
And they have
drafted
Kansas
right
City.
now. They do not have Kansas City, but they got the Giants, Chargers, and Ravens.
Chargers would be. Oh, I'd love that.
I don't know if the Chargers would know how to make it happen, but it would be great. It's just depending on landing spot. If he like this is why I did Jahan Dotson was okay last year, but he went to the Commanders,
Right.
and it's
Well, that's why. But like Dynasty, I still like Jahan. It's more like
yeah.
I'm not too worried about landing spot if it's Dynasty because a lot can change in like 3 or 4 years. Like they can get a new quarterback, new coaches, all that stuff. But for redraft, I think it will 100% matter.
Yeah. All right, you ready to move on to the next guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Final guy that we're going to talk about, unless Rick wants to we don't have much time to get lubed up on honorable mention Tank Dell.
No. And Tank Dell's not even, I'll just quickly say he's not even like in the same tier as these guys. I just wanted to put him in there because he was just insane in college, great route runner, great speed, but he's like 5'8", 160. He's going to get murdered. He's going to be like a 3rd round pick.
He's going to get flattened.
Yeah.
Anyway, Josh Downs, I guess my honorable mention would be Jalen Hyatt. I love that guy. I think he's awesome. But he's another short guy.
Did you see his route tree though by Matt Hardman?
Yeah, I saw that.
It was like all red.
Yeah. But anyway, Josh Downs is both of our 5th guy. Very good wide receiver from North Carolina, 21 years old, 5'9", 171, 4.48, so very similar 40 time to Jordan Addison. I actually thought that Downs would run slightly faster than what he did. Yeah, I did too. So, I mean, it's not disappointing. He's 71st percentile 40-yard dash, which is great. Burst score is 89th. Speed score 12th percentile. Not great. Breakout age is 19, so he's good there. I like this player, but I do see some issues. And like to me, it kind of feels like he's just a vertical guy. I could be wrong about that, but it feels like maybe I'm wrong.
I think he's more of like his player comp is Wandale. I think he's more like the Sky Moore Wandale, where he's going to be like the shifty slot guy.
Okay.
But he could be a vertical guy because he's got decent speed. Yeah. But the speed was also slower than I think we both anticipated. So
from this profile that I'm reading, he's very, very, he's very agile. So he's good with
he's a good route runner.
He's a good route runner. He has a very high level of understanding on how to get open.
People compared him, and I'm not going to say I agree with this. But I've seen Twitter, the Twitter people say he's very similar to Stephon Diggs.
Okay. Yeah. This actually fits that because it says this is the opposite. He's small and he plays like a big receiver. It's the opposite of Quentin Johnston. So he attacks the football and it's almost like he thinks he's bigger than he is, which is fine. That's usually a good thing if you're going after the ball. Because he's small, he has a limited catch radius. His top end speed is average. So that, like I said, he thought he was going to run a faster 40 time, but 40 time was slower. And when he's out there, you don't really want him on blocks because he's going to get squished. You could say the same for Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers, but Zay Flowers is a big boy. He's 182 at 5'9". Had a lot of muscle on him. But anyway, so I really like Josh Downs. I think he's a really, really good prospect for the NFL, and I think that his role is probably going to end up being the slot, similar to a lot of these guys like JSN, Zay Flowers, even Jordan Addison will probably play outside a little bit more, and then Quentin Johnston will probably play outside. But Josh Downs, I think he's got upside. I think he could be a really good receiver for a team. He's 5th, so I would be totally fine with taking him probably somewhere in the middle to late 2nd round in rookie drafts. And then after that, it's just kind of like, throw your darts.
Yeah, I think these 5 guys are the clear 5 for sure. And I've even seen some reports where Josh Downs could go in the first round in the NFL draft. So if that happens, that might even move him up.
Move him up.
I think he's got a lot of potential. I like his agility, the route running. He's again my kind of prospect. He is very small though, and like you were saying about Zay Flowers, if you're 5'90", you got to have those special traits. I don't really think Josh Downs has a special trait unless you think it's route running.
Yeah.
Because he arguably him and Addison and maybe JSN are the best route runners, pure route runners in this draft. So if you want to say route running, then maybe, but I don't think he has like a special trait, which does concern me a little bit. But he is ridiculous, but the Stephon Diggs comps, I do understand what people are saying when you compare him to Diggs, which would be the best case scenario for Downs, but I don't think he'll be that in the NFL. But I do really like the player. I think if a team drafts him late first, early second round, they could be getting a really solid wide receiver. I don't know if he's a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. I see him more as like a really good wide receiver 2. But we'll have to see. But I do like the player still.
Okay. There you go. I was trying to make sure I hit the right button here. Top 5 rookie wide receivers. We got consensus, kind of. JSN, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Josh Downs. Lots of good receivers. Thursday, we're going to talk about running backs, so be sure to check that out whenever it launches. We'll see you later, guys.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.